This show is clean.
Vegetables.
Pretty much.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Effizode 752. Hello, it's Mike Matthews broadcasting from the last place on earth, located somewhere in Podcaster Valley, California. Today, Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the Engineer, plus the return of the much-loved feature, Do You Know DAT, where we look at some interesting stories from the world of business and what low-fat diets are not as good. Mike's Daily Podcast to do versus low-carb diets. We'll find out more about that. I'm in the hood. Mike's Daily Podcast in Podcastro Valley, where apparently a lot of people like to dump their stuff and take a cue from McDuff, the crime dog. Don't do that. It's illegal. And if you get caught, you will have to pay a large fine. And I like a good bratwurst. And that's what I found out when I met my new friend, Mike's Daily Podcast, Petra, the German tourist, yesterday as I was walking Basil Durboxer. Mike's Daily. What a good dog. Podcast. You know, on the last show, Valentino and Bison Bentley, they complained that beer, when it spills on you, that it's very sticky, and they didn't like that. And then Bison Bentley and I did a little skit at the end of the show where he played a woman and we ended up kissing, and I feel a little uncomfortable or comfortable telling you that. I don't know how I feel. Look, I just walked in, but I'm a male, so that's not unusual. Hello, my God, it's Chely Shoehart, gift shop supervisor. Oh my God, you kissed Bison Bentley? Yeah, I didn't mean to. It was a mistake. Although he does have soft lips. Oh, that's like so gross. I should date him. Yeah, you should. Look who else just walked in. Oh, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman! And this is John Deere the Engineer. Where's our ab art, Mike? No ab art, sorry. Are you prejudiced? Are you racist against ab art? I just don't want any ab art. I'll have ABBA art on the walls. Ha ha. Hey guys, you know what? The last place on earth is my place, so I make the final decisions. Well, I'm gonna leave the show. Then I'll get some ab art. Gosh, as long as I can have it with some ABBA art too. I have no problem with that. Wonderful. Yeah, so yesterday I'm walking Basil the Boxer, and we're walking along this area near the bay. It's the Hayward Regional Shoreline, which I have posted many a podcast picture of over the years that the show has been coming to you through the internet. And we're walking along, and I meet this, there's this lady on her bike, and she's stopping, and she's looking at the scenery. And I'm like, this is some really beautiful scenery, isn't it? Because a lot of people on that trail don't ever really stop to look. And I'm always amazed at how beautiful it is. So she says, yes, it is. And she's got a German accent. And I go, oh, where are you from? She said, Germany. I just arrived yesterday. And I said, oh, interesting. And we talk because, you know, my mom's German. And the first voices that you hear on this show every day, aside from mine saying the show is clean, is you hear my Uncle Jupp from Belheim, Germany. He's a Belheimer. He's saying, you know, I'll play you another song. And then it's his granddaughter, my cousin, Ann-Katrine, saying Mike's Daily Podcast. And they are both German. Well, this woman's name is Petra. And we spoke for a while. And then I said, you know, I don't have any plans. I can show you around. Yes, what a wonderful, friendly gesture, Mike. So I showed her a lot of cool East Bay places like Alameda and Oakland and Berkeley. And we ended up eating at a German restaurant. She actually liked it. She's like, oh my gosh, they're serving real traditional food. This is weird. I'm eating German food in America, and I just came from Germany. So we had a great conversation. I learned a lot about Germany talking to her, and about how they feel about Obama after the whole tapping Chancellor Merkel's cell phone. They're like angry at Obama about it, but then they blame W. Bush because they realize he and Cheney were the ones that put that all into motion. So it's interesting. They're mad at him, but they're like, that's okay. We know it wasn't your fault. It's that other guy's fault. And we discussed interesting, they have their own immigration issues going on there. A lot of people coming up from Africa because of all the war and disease and unrest down there. They're crossing the seas and coming to Germany. And she told me all about her life in Frankfurt. And it was fascinating. I might see her again tomorrow and on Wednesday, which it's always wonderful to meet people from other countries. Mike Matthews, is she like pretty? Yeah. And that's great as well. But oh my God, Mike Matthews, what if it was like an ugly man? Would you still show him around? John Deere, the engineer, is right. You're racist. No, I like to help out my fellow person. Great, Mike. Why don't you take me on a tour of the Bay Area? Sure, Floyd. How about next year? Don't put so much pressure on me. This is interesting. What happened was last week, I think I told you that my doctor told me I need to cut down on my fats and my triglycerides and eat more healthy fats. But according to the New York Times and nytimes.com, people who avoid carbohydrates and eat more fat, even saturated fat, lose more body fat and have fewer cardiovascular risks than people who follow the low-fat diet that health authorities have favored for decades. A major new study has shown this. In more recent clinical studies in which individuals and their diets were assessed over time, it's produced a more complex picture. Some have provided strong evidence that people can sharply reduce their heart disease risk by eating fewer carbohydrates and more dietary fat, with the exception of trans fats. Those are bad, okay? The new findings suggest that this strategy is more effective in reducing body fat and also lowers overall weight. It was financed by the National Institutes of Health and published in the Annals of Internal Medicine. It included a racially diverse group of 150 men and women, which is a rarity in clinical nutrition studies. They were assigned to follow diets for 1 year that limited either the amount of carbs or fat they could eat, but not overall calories. Diets low in carbohydrates and higher in fat and protein have been commonly used for weight loss since the Atkins diet. Among the long-standing criticisms is that these diets cause people to lose weight in the form of water instead of body fat, and that cholesterol and other heart disease risk factors climb because dieters invariably raise their intake of saturated fat by eating more meat and dairy. By the end of the year-long trial, people in the low-carbohydrate group had lost about 8 pounds more on average than those in the low-fat group. They had significantly greater reductions in body fat than the low-fat group and improvements in lean muscle mass, even though neither group changed their levels of physical activity. While the low-fat group did lose weight, they appeared to lose more muscle than fat. The high-fat group followed something of a modified Atkins diet. They were told to eat mostly protein and fat and to choose foods with primarily unsaturated fats like fish, olive oil, and nuts. But they were allowed to eat foods higher in saturated fat as well, including cheese and red meat. A typical day's diet might consist of eggs for breakfast, tuna salad for lunch, and some kind of protein for dinner like red meat, chicken, fish, pork, or tofu, along with vegetables. Low-carb participants were encouraged to cook with olive and canola oils, but butter was allowed. Overall, they took in a little more than 13% of their daily calories from saturated fat, more than double the 5 to 6% limit recommended by the American Heart Association. The majority of their fat intake, however, was unsaturated fats. The low-fat group included more grains, cereals, and starches in their diet. Both groups were encouraged to eat vegetables, and the low-carbohydrate group was told that eating some beans and fresh fruits was fine as well. In the end, people in the low-carbohydrate group saw markers of inflammation and triglycerides, a type of fat that circulates in the blood, plunge. The HDL, the so-called good cholesterol, rose more sharply than it did for people in the low-fat group. Blood pressure, total cholesterol, and LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, stayed about the same for people in each group. Nonetheless, those on the low-carbohydrate diet ultimately did so well that they managed to lower their Framingham risk scores, which calculate the likelihood of a heart attack within the next 10 years. The low-fat group, on average, had no improvements in their scores. My doctor hasn't banned cheese altogether, but she did say, cut down the cheese, eat more fish, and limit how much red meat and bacon I eat. But she did say lean pork is good. She said that's better than turkey. So low carb seems to be the way to go instead of the low fat. What do you think? Email me, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. We read your comments on the section emails from email. Email me there if you'd like to be a guest on the show or if you'd like to sponsor the show as well. MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. And speaking of which...
And now, a big thanks to our sponsor.
Let's hear it for ClickItTicket.com. If you want concert tickets, sports tickets, theater tickets, check out ClickItTicket.com. Just Google them. They have a huge selection of tickets to any concert, game, or Broadway show anywhere in North America. Although Broadway shows typically are in New York, I have found. Click It Ticket has a large selection of tickets to the hottest concert tours this year, like Santana, Lady Gaga, Tom Petty, ZZ Top, Katy Perry, Paul McCartney. And right now, Mike's Daily Podcast listeners, you get a special discount. You get 5% off your purchase by typing in the promo code Mike's Daily. So if you're looking for some concert tickets, theater tickets, sports tickets, go right now to MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com and click on that link that you see right there on the upper left-hand side of the page. Click on that and then mention Mike's Daily, the promo code Mike's Daily, and you'll get 5% off your tickets. Yeah! Hey, also check out MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com for links to where to listen to the show in iTunes. Subscribe to the show in iTunes. And if you rate and comment on the show, that helps our ranking. More people find out about us that way. Also, there's the Facebook page. Like the Facebook page when I post a new show. Share that with your friends, and other people will find out about us that way, too. It's a great way to help out the show. We're at facebook.com/MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST. Also at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com, you can find where to find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spreaker, Mixcloud, Podomatic, Yelp, Tumblr, and Twitter. And there's also the Amazon deal of the day. Click on that and buy something at a great discount. That helps us out, too. We get a little bit of something from that. All of that at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Oh, and you can also read the blog and see the Daily Podcast picture there, as well as all my past interviews.
It's Bison Bentley's Do You Know Dat?
Hey, this is Bison Bentley, and Mike Matthews has a couple of stories that'll make you want to ask yourself, do you know that? Do you know that? Do you know that? Yes, Bison Bentley asks that question a lot, and so we ask ourselves that question, and these are all interesting stories that you probably didn't know about. Did you know that? And our topic today is business, and we begin with little Nat King Cole.
Mona Lisa, men have named you.
When expensive art is stolen, the question always arises, what can anyone actually do with it? Fence it for quick cash? Use it in a trade with prosecutors to reduce charges for some other crime? Some reports of recovered artworks previously reported as stolen or missing offer a different scenario. It is possible that some missing works are hidden right under the noses of investigators in storage sites. For instance, in 1889, Van Gogh, or as the British say, Van Gogh, Cyprus, Sky and Country was found earlier this year in a bank vault in Madrid. Discovered only when tax authorities raided safe deposit box belonging to 551 individuals who are accused of owing back taxes. This according to the New York Observer. And in 2012, a 1960s Liechtenstein painting called Electric Chord that its owner, the late dealer Leo Castelli, sent out for cleaning in 1970 was found in a Manhattan storage warehouse. The painting, valued at $4 million, had disappeared, and Castelli's widow, Barbara Bertozzi Castelli, learned of its reemergence only when the person claimed to own it tried to sell it. Shortly after, Homeland Security agents raided another art storage site in Manhattan, this one owned by an Indian antiquities dealer, where they found more than $20 million in religious artifacts looted from Indian temples. That dealer, Subhash Chandra Kapoor, was arrested and extradited to India to face smuggling charges. As with the Liechtenstein, it was the prospective sale of these items that led investigators to the fine art facility. The past decade has been seeing significant growth in the art storage industry, but those recent discoveries of missing artworks raised questions about what is being stored. The international auction house Christie's, which offers art storage in London and Brooklyn, does not investigate its holdings. Quote, "We offer absolute privacy and discretion to our clients and generally do not undertake detailed inventory processing unless we are specifically requested to do so by a client," it says in its promotional brochure. The owners of fine art storage sites tend to be less worried about whether or not their clients have stolen property than about potential thefts of stored property by their employees. Some of the new entries in the art storage field are a lot less secure than they should be. Employee security guards often steal from storage, said Robert Whitman, the former head of the FBI's Art Theft Division and now a private art security and recovery consultant. He noted one case in which he was called where two employees of the St. Louis-based Fine Arts Express storage company conspired to steal more than 20 works from the holdings of a single collector in 2004. Fine art storage facilities, of course, take a variety of measures to protect stored objects from thieves outside and in, including 24-hour guards, electronic surveillance, electronic record keeping, special magnetic cards to permit entry to special rooms, and a system to restrict who may access those cards. A more passive form of security is the fact that most fine art storage facilities are located in lower-income industrial areas which no one would associate with high-end art. Those areas of town are chosen in part to help keep the cost of storage affordable, and there is an element of no one is paying attention to what is going on in some factory-looking building. Not every work of art that is missing has been stolen. Many works go missing as a result of human error. There are what are called misshipped pieces. A painting is taken off display at a gallery or museum, put in storage, but it is often sent with other paintings of the same size in a custom-built crate designed to hold several works. One of the works in the crate is left off the bill of loading, and no one is going to know about it until someone calls for the other paintings in that crate.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars.
Flying.
Let me see.
When civil aviation officials learn of a new danger like liquid explosives or underwear bombs, national and international agencies respond by issuing rules and restrictions for passengers around the world. But airlines and governments have been slow to address ground-based threats. The downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 is raising fresh concerns about who in the complex global aviation system is responsible for defending civilian aircraft against missiles. This according to Time magazine. For years, airlines have confined their worries about planes being shot down to so-called man-portable air defense system, or MANPAD missiles, like the U.S. FIM-92 Stinger or the Russian Strela 2. Those systems have limited range. They can hit aircraft as they take off or land, but not at higher altitudes. Aviation authorities had thought longer-range anti-aircraft missiles, usually controlled by national militaries, couldn't or wouldn't be used against commercial airliners cruising at 30,000 feet or higher. But recognition of the threat doesn't mean An organized response from regulators, national agencies including the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration and the European Union's Eurocontrol, can issue flight warnings for regions they consider dangerous and can ban routes for national carriers they regulate. Only individual countries can close their airspace to all flights. After several Ukrainian military planes were shot down in July, the government in Kiev closed airspace in the east of the country up to 32,000 feet. MH17 was flying 1,000 feet above that en route, safely transited by hundreds of airliners in the days before the incident. No aviation officials warned flights off that higher route until after MH17 was shot down. The U.S. says airliners should decide where it's safe for their planes to fly, barring an outright ban on a route. Tony Tyler, CEO of the airline trade group International Air Transport Association, argues that airlines take their cues from governments. He says it is very similar to driving a car. If that road is open, you assume that it is safe. If it's closed, you find an alternate route. Eastern Ukraine is hardly the only danger zone. The FAA strongly warns against, but does not prohibit flights over Syria and Yemen, where man pads are in use. Some U.S. airlines had canceled flights to Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport even before the FAA issued a temporary ban on July 22nd because of threats from missiles launched in the Palestine-held Gaza. One final option: plane-based missile defense systems like the ones found on Air Force One. But it is available, but it is costly. They can use jammers. Several systems confuse missiles with electronic radiation. Northrop Grumman Large Aircraft Infrared Countermeasure, for example, it costs $1.5 million per plane, and it automatically detects a missile launch, determines if it is a threat, and activates a high-intensity laser-based countermeasure system to track and defeat the missile. Another option are decoys. Simpler methods fool missiles with multiple targets, like flares ejected from the plane. They burn and create heat to divert a heat-seeking missile from the aircraft, or chaff, which are foil strips ejected from the airplane, and they present a radar-guided missile, with multiple targets designed to divert it.
Because you had to be a big shot, didn't you? You had to open up your mouth.
Well, he's big. I don't know if he's a big shot, but he's definitely a powerhouse. Leonard Steinberg. He left Douglas Elliman for a tech-focused startup that promised to revolutionize home sales. The industry is watching closely, this according to New York Observer. He says, when I was dating, Leonard Steinberg says, I'd speak to someone on the phone and be like, listen, you should know I'm kind of short. But then when they'd show up and see how much better I looked, things were already on the up. Under-promising and over-delivering, he continues, is everything. The broker, who has established himself as a mainstay in Manhattan's downtown luxury market, in his 18-year career, he has spearheaded more than $2 billion in transactions, with a client base spanning from Tribeca to Australia. At Douglas Elliman, he consistently ranked as the firm's top downtown agent, closing on trophies like a Dolce & Gabbana 211th Avenue penthouse for $32 million. But Mr. Steinberg, who is 49 years old, made waves through the industry recently when he announced his defection from Elliman to Urban Compass, a startup brokerage that flaunts a tech-centric approach. Why would anyone leave such an enviable perch, particularly for a company that didn't even have its name on it? Urban Compass has its own pitch. After coming onto the scene in May 2013 with Mayor Bloomberg on tap for its launch, the startup promised an end-to-end solution to the woes of the Manhattan apartment search, along with the complete rewiring of old-school business through technology. In September, Urban Compass boasted a $150 million valuation. This was in 2013, just 4 months after its website launched in beta. While the firm had enticed backers including Thrive Capital and Advanced Publications, the parent of Condé Nast, the question loomed as to whether the Urban Compass is merely a sexed-up traditional brokerage. By design, Urban Compass plays the part of a startup well. A pool table and a flat-screen TV occupy the back of the place, next to stacked cases of Snapple. There are no cubicles, instead often desk space with employees clustered inches from one another. Near the back sits the team of 10 engineers, whom Urban Compass touts as the linchpin of the firm. Even if Urban Compass doesn't end up turning the industry on its head, it might not ultimately matter. Mr. Steinberg, who is president of the firm and also receiving equity, has carved out its cachet in relational capital, as evidenced by an intensely loyal client base. When he left Douglas Elliman for Urban Compass, he and his luxury loft team brought with them close to $200 million in listings, helping thicken a sales page that has appeared sparse at times. Urban Compass now has 19 exclusive listings. The site features a $37.5 million penthouse at 158 Mercer Street, a co-listing with Robert De Niro. Leonard Steinberg attributes his anxious, disciplined temperament to his German heritage. He was born in 1965 in Cape Town to immigrant parents, and he says he was drawn to real estate as early as 14. He says, I would book appointments to go see houses on my own, which, when you think about it, was kind of creepy and weird.
Same as it ever was.
Water flowing underground. Maybe not so much in California. When Governor Jerry Brown declared a drought emergency for California in January, he asked residents to cut their water consumption by 20%. 6 months later, there was a survey done that showed that the state used 1% more water in May than the previous 3-year average for the same month. A July 15th report from the University of California at Davis estimated that the drought will cost the state more than $2 billion this year, with some 17,000 seasonal and part-time agricultural jobs lost. In an effort to awaken Californians, officials have put in effect the first statewide emergency water use restrictions since the drought began. The curbs on lawn watering and other outdoor uses carry fines of up to $500 per day for each violation, but officials acknowledged that the fine's real value is less enforcement than awareness. There are not going to be that many fines written, given, or paid because we just don't have the resources to do it, says Timothy Quinn, head of the California Association of Water Agencies. This is only going to be successful if people have a change of heart. Water districts are fixing leaky pipes and encouraging customers to use recycled water for non-potable purposes like fountains and lawn irrigation, according to Time magazine. Some communities are paying residents to remove thirsty turf in favor of drought-resistant plants. And throughout the state, more water districts are setting prices based on volume, charging extra for water used beyond a set threshold. But even smart conservation can have a boomerang effect. Coastal Southern California has some of the state's most cutting-edge water use policies, including mandatory low-flow toilets, turf removal programs, and strict lawn watering laws. But it got the worst grade on the recent state survey of water use. That stretch, which encompasses Los Angeles and San Diego, used 8% more water in the month of May than the average for the same month over the previous 3 years. In the Sacramento area, where only about half of all homes have water meters and conservation policies are far less advanced, residents reduced water consumption by 13% in May. If it doesn't rain next fall, all bets are off, and California is going to have to go to far more serious restrictions everywhere. As we go outside of the last place on earth where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, California.
And here's today's podcast picture.
And about a year and a half ago, I went to Portland, Oregon, and I enjoyed myself immensely there, taking the public transportation, checking out all the cool breweries, restaurants, live music. Oh, and I checked out Mellow Mushroom. They've got Mellow Mushrooms like all over the South. When I used to live in Alabama, they were all over Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. But there's one there in Portland, and it is so cool. It's so retro. Great decor, neat kind of old 70s art and mood lighting. It's just awesome in there. It's like a lounge. And then you get to eat this delicious, wonderful, fattening pizza. You can see a picture of that cool spot right there at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Mike Matthews, would you ever take me there? Of course I would. But what if I was like a big, fat, scary, British person missing his teeth? Would your name still be Chely? Yeah, of course. Yeah, I would take you then. Mike, when are we gonna go to that Mellow Mushroom in Portland, Oregon? How about next year? Don't put so much pressure on me! Oh, sorry. Hey, I would like to take 1 second here to say a very heartfelt condolence to the family of Dan Wilson. I interviewed his wife, Mary Z. Wilson, a couple years ago, she of the band The Restless Hillbillies. And I had spoken to Dan many times over the years when I lived in Ventura. Just a nice guy and amazing. Anything with a string. He could play, make it sound so good. Bass, mandolin, guitar, anything. And he's just a fantastic guy. He was in so many great bands. And he is swirling in the heavens tonight, as Greg Proops says, and he is jamming with Jimmy Adams up there, and they are playing some fantastic songs that those guys used to do together. So I'm sad that he's gone from our earth, but I'm so glad I had the chance to meet him. And you can actually hear some of the music that he did with the Restless Hillbillies at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Go to the interviews page from 2011 to 2012, because that was in that time frame when I did the interview, and look for the Restless Hillbillies. And you'll hear Mary Z. Wilson playing with her husband, Dan. And go online, check out Jimmy Adams stuff. Dan and Jimmy did so much stuff together. Jimmy no longer with us either, but Google Jimmy Adams and you'll hear some great music. All of it featuring Dan playing something in the background and making it sound great.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Email Mike now at MIKES-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!
Next show, we'll have the return of the much-loved segment Into an Interview, where we'll have a very special guest. Plus, we'll hear from Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster.